Tonight on Sports Final, we'll recap this week in sports on the South and East Hill.
We'll take a look at some Section 4 high school sports, and we'll be joined by Will Gladney to talk about his 183-yard performance over the weekend.
All that and more coming up tonight. Welcome to Sports Final. I'm John Sokoloff.
And I'm Alex Hessig.
Alex, we got a lot of great sports on the South Hill over this past week. Let's get started first with some Bomber football.
Oh yeah, let's get to it.
The Bombers came off the bye this week and returned home for the first time in a month over the weekend to take on the Hobart Statesmen. Wahid Nabi was coming off his stellar debut as he threw for 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, and was the first freshman starter for the Bombers since 2002. Hobart came to Butterfield with a 3-game winning streak and a preseason All-American first-team quarterback in Shane Sweeney, who's certainly been playing like it. He leads the Liberty League in passing yards with 1,224, which is 371 yards more than the next QB in line in Wahid Nabi, who's only started 2 games. Let's look at the highlights. David Prudhomme on the first drive for the Bombers of the game. His field goal gets blocked, so the score remains 0-0. The first quarter would end with that score as well. Both offenses got things going a little bit, but no one really able to strike. Go to the second quarter. Dakota Harvey on the Wildcat takes the ball himself into the end zone for the touchdown. How about the first year, Alex? He had 5 touchdowns in the Liberty League going into this game, which is the most in the conference. And for a first-year guy, Barnfield gets hurt. He has to step in. And then a little later, Wahid Nabi, down 7-0, just heaves one up for Will Gladney. Whenever he's one-on-one against anyone, you could always just heave it up, and odds are he's going to get it. A beautiful catch as he's falling on his back against D'Antonio there, letting the crowd know that he eats. That drive would end in a field goal. 7-3, second half we go. Up for Will Gladney again, who comes down with it. His second touchdown of these past 2 weeks. And again, celebrating with his teammates, a 10-7 game. Bombers took the lead. Leads would change a lot in this second half. Shane Sweeney, quiet first half. In the second half, he would start going. Finds Zach Withers over the middle. Gets wrapped up at the 2-yard line. All Liberty League second-team player, captain for the Hobart Statesmen, one of the better tight ends in this conference, makes the play and takes these Statesmen in within the 5-yard line. And then the fourth quarter we go, switching sides, but Dakota Harvey pounds his way into the end zone. After this game, Alex, he had 2 touchdowns on this game, 7 overall, and that by far leads the Liberty League all for this first year. He's very impressive and a bright spot for this young core to come. So 14-10 Hobart. A little later here into the fourth we go. Wahid Nabi takes the snap to give to Tristan Brown, who's been quiet to start out the year with injuries, finds his way all the way to the 20-yard line before being wrapped up by D'Antonio, and Tristan Brown finally able to get it going, the 10th player in program history to rush for 2,000 yards, and he would keep the drive going himself. This was the Tristan Brown drive. A little later from the 10-yard line, he gets into the end zone for the touchdown. Tristan Brown, is second of the day. He would rush for over 100 yards, 17-14. The Bombers lead. They would go on to win the game 24-21. Very impressive game for the Bombers there, Alex.
Oh, it really was. It's just that great back-and-forth action that you love to see in college football.
Yeah, and a lot of great stats to look for in that one. One, Tristan Brown got 2 touchdowns on the year, and he was able to rush for 2,000 yards on the season. Bombers 2-0 in Liberty League play, and Wahid Nabi, the freshman, threw for over 350 yards in both of his first 2 games.
And Will Gladney, huge game, 183 yards. I'm excited to have him in a little later so we can talk to him and just see what went into that huge performance. Now, moving on, the Ithaca men's soccer team also had their own big Liberty League game over the weekend. They look to bounce back in the Liberty League play. They dropped their conference opener last weekend on the road against Clarkson in a 2-1 defeat. They had all week to sort of learn from that loss, take it in, and get ready for their home conference opener against St. Lawrence. Let's go to Carpwood Field and see what went down. And here we go. Ithaca Bombers hosting the St. Lawrence Saints. And early in action, Max Leichenstein racing off his line to clear the ball, cut off by the Saints midfielder, which leads to this chance, but he misses wide right as the game remains scoreless. Later in the first half, Max Parrish, little one-on-one action, slicing and dicing through the defense, and he creates some space for the cross here, but Parrish places it too close to the keeper. St. Lawrence wipes out that potential goal. Now St. Lawrence taking charge here, moving the ball around a bit, and the ball finds Brendan McNamee, who has a quality scoring chance off the left foot, but it finds Lichtenstein right in the chest as things remain scoreless. Now here we go. Ithaca moving the ball around a little bit here, fighting for it, trying to keep possession. It's Max Barish, and he falls right here, fights to get back up, but then finds the freshman Drew Cohn for the header opportunity, and he just can't put it away. So things do remain scoreless here. But St. Lawrence, a little later, setting up for the corner kick. It's freshman Miguel Redruju, and he sends the ball in to the 6'6" Stephen Dorney, who places that header beautifully in the bottom left corner of the goal, and St. Lawrence would take that 1-0 lead into the half. And Ithaca pushing the ball up here, and it's fresh midfielder Luke Caron with the golden chance to score, but he loses the angle, deflects off the goalie, and sets up a corner for Ithaca. And straight after that, Zach Lichtman taking the corner for the Bombers, and he finds Eric Helper, who puts it in the back of the net with the header. 75th minute, game still tied at 1. St. Lawrence's Taylor Williams beats Liechtenstein and then strikes the rebound in the back of the net to give the Saints a 2-1 lead. 10 minutes later, Jethro Didi makes a sweet pass through the defense, finding Charlton Kelly, and they put the ball in the back of the net for the 3-1 win. So it was a great showing for the Ithaca men's soccer team. Even though it was in defeat, they played hard, and St. Lawrence just, a little too much at the end for them there.
They definitely did, and now our own Jack Arpey was there for his reporting package, who has more on the game.
League action returned to the South Hill this weekend as the Ithaca men's soccer team faced off against St. Lawrence.
Are we going
at
straight to
Cartwood
Brett's
Field.
after this?
The Bombers came into Saturday's matchup hoping to improve their season record to 5-3-1, following a loss on September 23rd at Clarkson University. A win would help the Bombers regain their footing and correct course on a season which has so far been a bit of a mixed bag. As things got going, it was a slow start for both teams as the game remained scoreless through 35 minutes of action before Stephen Dorney rocked a perfect shot to give the Saints a 1-0 advantage as the clock ticked down toward halftime. During the break, the Bombers regained their footing and came back with Zach Lichtman on the assist, delivering a perfect cross, which was shot by Eric Helper to make the score 1-0. After a bitter stalemate lasting through much of the second half of regulation, things fell apart for the Bombers, with back-to-back goals scored by the Saints. The final score was 3-1 St. Lawrence. With this loss, the Bombers fell to 4-4-1 on the season and 0-2-0 for Liberty League play.
The Bombers came into today's match at Cartwood Field off a tough loss against Clarkson, hoping to turn things around and improve their record to 5-3-1. Unfortunately for the Bombers, it was the unforgiving defense of St. Lawrence that stood in their way this time. The Bombers will look to turn things around on Wednesday against Hobart. For ICTV Sports Final, I'm Jack Arpey.
That was very well done by our very own Jack Arpey. A great look at the men's soccer game. And they weren't the only ones looking to rebound from a Liberty League loss. The women's field hockey team, they didn't have much time to sit on their Liberty League opening loss as well against Union last weekend. They faced a 3-game week this week, taking on the likes of Elmira, St. Lawrence, and Cortland. And on Wednesday, the Bombers took on the Elmira Soaring Eagles. And as Big Sean would say, they were looking to bounce back as well. And you can see they did win in big fashion, 5-0. Michaela Donahue led the way for the Bombers with 2 goals and an assist. Meg Dowd also chipped in with a goal and 2 assists. And they're back in action next Saturday. We'll take on Skidmore College in a conference matchup. And our very own Brett Mayerson was at the game, and he has. So we'll send it out to him.
I'm Brett Mayerson, and another big win for the Bombers here at Higgins Field, where Ithaca Field Hockey just defeated Elmira 5-0. A great game played by the Bombers. Let's take a look at some of the action.
A beautiful day for a game of field hockey at Higgins Stadium at Ithaca College. Bombers taking on the Elmira Soaring Eagles. And to start us off, here come the Bombers going towards the Elmira net. A big scramble in front of the goal after a shot taken there. Big scramble, and finding it is number 6, Meg Dowd, who puts the Bombers up 1-0 in the first half of play. Now moving on to the next part of the first half, and we have the Bombers at it again. Michaela Donahue finishing off a very nice pass to put the Bombers up 2-0, and the Bombers would carry that lead into the second half. Now we're into the second half now, and a 3-0 now on another goal by the Bombers, as they score yet another from a corner. This one by Maddie Ryan. Now the Bombers would score another one off of a beautiful cross pass here from number 10, Maya Rogers. And now Donahue moving down the right side again, and she would put in her second goal of the game to make it 5-0 Bombers.
Here with head coach Caitlin Wahila. Coach, it was a great win for you guys today. Big 5-0 win. Michaela Donahue had 2 goals today. She's been your lead scorer all season. What's it like having her on this squad?
Yeah, we're really excited about Michaela's ability to finish in front of the cage, and she's consistently been able to finish, and she's got great speed and a great ability to eliminate defenders, and we're really proud of her.
Awesome, and this is another big shutout win for you guys, 5-0. What kind of momentum is this going to take into your Liberty League home opener against St. Lawrence on Saturday?
Yeah, the last couple days we were really working to prep to be able to come out here today, execute the simple, so that when we play St. Lawrence on Saturday, we can do the same exact thing and be able to possess the ball and work for attack corners and be able to finish on cage. So we're excited that we were able to put 5 in the cage tonight, and hope to be able to play St. Lawrence really strong on Saturday.
It was a great team played game.
We'll be right back after this break. We'll talk a little Cornell football, and also Bombers wide receiver Will Gladney will be joining us as he sits down with Alex to talk about his performance on Saturday. We'll be right back. We'd like to remind you to follow us on all of our social media accounts on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. We'll be right back on Instagram at ICTV_SportsFinal, at SportsFinal on Facebook, and at ICTV SportsFinal on Twitter. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Sports Final. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to send it over to the East Hill. It's been a rough start to the season for the Big Red. Cornell's 0-2 on the year, and junior quarterback Dalton Banks has thrown for at least 250 yards in each contest, but the defense has struggled, giving up 45 points per game. They had their home opener as they took on Colgate on Saturday. And if you remember, last year they rallied from a 21-point deficit to beat Colgate on the road. It's the first time they've done that in over 40 years. Let's send it over to Showcall Field and take a look at the highlights as they took on the Raiders. First home game of the season. And on this first drive for Colgate, getting sacked right there is Grant Brenneman, and that's huge for this defense to get a little bit of momentum because these last few weeks have been a little rough. That next drive, another ending drive early because of an incompletion, so the Cornell defense let them scoreless after that first half, but going into the second, Thomas Ives found by Grant Brenneman on the crossing route into the end zone for the touchdown. Colgate would take a 7-0 lead. On the ensuing kickoff, though, Chris Puzzi kicks off 60 yards to the Cornell 5. David Jones returns it 38 yards to the Cornell 43-yard line, which would set up the Big Red in great field position. 2nd and 23 we go, a little later into the drive. Dalton Banks had a rough day, 4 picks on the day, but on this one, it wasn't as bad. He finds on the seam route Hayes Nodal for 26 yards to the Colgate 1. The officials say that he was just out of the end zone, so Dalton Banks rushes the offense to the line of scrimmage right away and just takes it himself on the QB sneak into the end zone for the touchdown. Now it's only a 14-7 game in this second half, but Colgate was not done yet. Grant Brenneman scrambling to his right, making the most of this one, throwing over the middle, and to the touchdown he has Malik Twyman for 7 yards to take a 21-7 lead. 4th and 1 we go, a little later in the game. Alex Matthews rushes for no gain to the Cornell 31, so Cornell gets a chance to take over. However, they were not able to capitalize. Colgate would get the win 21-7, and Colgate ends a 3-game skid. And on this one, 21-7 we go. But Dalton Banks, 4 interceptions on the game, a huge setback for him on that one, as well as Colgate ending the 3-game skid. Now they're 2-3 on the year. And before this win, Colgate was outscored 78-24 in their previous 2 games. And now we're going to send it over to our own Alex Hassig, who's sitting down with Will Gladney right now. Alex?
Thanks, John. Thanks for giving us that great look at what's going on in the East Hill with Cornell football, but now we're joined by an Ithaca Bomber football player, Will Gladney, wide receiver. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
So yesterday was a huge win for you guys. Take me through what that game was like.
We had 2 weeks to prepare for Hobart, and we knew it was going to be a tough competition for sure. And when we got on the field, we were just ready to get after it, and the favors turned on.
Now, you've been with 2 quarterbacks already this season, Adam Fron first, now with Wahid Nabi, just a freshman. What's that relationship like? What's the chemistry like on the field?
You know, Wahib's a special talent for sure. Unfortunately, things didn't work out for Fron. But getting that confidence with Wahib and just throwing balls after practice with him and staying after it has definitely helped us out.
Now, yesterday you had 12 catches, 183 yards, a touchdown. And when you look across the board, you're leading the league in every receiving statistic right now. How have you been able to put together this type of season when you're only a sophomore?
Honestly, Coach Swanstrom puts us in the right position. Obviously, he can throw the ball, and I just run my routes and just look up and the ball's there.
Now, this year, this team, how high is the ceiling, do you think?
Well, you guys see the points and the scores and stuff, and then we go back and watch film. And honestly, we haven't played a good game like to our standards yet. So I think the sky's the limit.
Now, as you look ahead for the rest of the season, you got some new opponents that you didn't see last year because now you're in the new league. So, have you given much thought to that? Do you think it might be a little different versus what you guys went through last year?
I mean, the Liberty League is a smaller conference. I still think it's pretty good. The E8's a really good conference, but we go week by week. We want to try to think ahead, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Now, a minute ago I asked you about what you think this team's ceiling can be. What do you think your ceiling can be as a player? I mean, just like I said earlier, only a sophomore, so you still got this year and 2 more years potentially. What do you think it could be like?
I'm trying to get Wahib to stay up here all summer because that's what I do, and we'll just see where that takes us.
All right, well, really appreciate you coming on today. Thanks for joining us. After the break, we'll be sending it to our high school sports hosts, Ben Carlton and Taylor Mensch, to catch you up on all things Section 4. And be sure to follow us on social media, Twitter at ICTV Sports Final, Facebook at Sports Final, and Instagram at ICTV_Sports Final. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Sports Final. Now we'll send over to our high school hosts, Ben Carlton and Taylor Mensch. Guys, take it away.
What is up, guys? I'm Taylor Mensch.
I'm Ben Carlton.
And we are all things high school sports through Section 4. And yeah, this is a new segment for us. We're pretty excited. We're going to call it the BLT. We're not sure what the L is, but right now it's Ben, something and Taylor.
We're gonna get there.
Yeah, so let's cut to the highlights. Let's get to it right away. On the hardwood for some volleyball. That was weird. For a New York, Pennsylvania matchup, battle as Corning hosted North Penn Liberty. The Mounties of North Penn working it pretty early in this game. Chris Agrega puts a hole in the floor after a huge spike. And a really competitive back-and-forth game. Haley Monks letting the world know she is here with a booming hit. The Mounties up 5 at this point in the match. But Olivia Tannenberg for the Hawks perfectly placing the ball right between the Mounties defense. So the Hawks keeping this one in competitive. In the end, however, ended up being a 3-zip final. And let's see, it was North Penn Liberty who got the win, and they cruise. So now let's go to the soccer pitch, where we saw girls soccer, where a 90-degree night on senior day for the Elmira Notre Dame girls soccer team as they hosted Odessa Montour. The Indians trying to stay in this game. They were down 1-0. Hunter Doherty putting the team on her back, but that shot doesn't have enough juice on it. Later in the half, Laura Vargas, remember that name. She makes a few shifty moves to get past the defense and score. This goal was one of 3 she had on the night, and that's right, she had a hat trick. First half winding down, Camille Vandermeer scoring right there, and the goalie really didn't make an effort there. But END cruises and bruises, and they take a 6-0 win. What do you have?
I've got some boys soccer coming up. We've got the Ithaca Little Red taking on the Corning Hawks. Taking it up here, this is Mason Todd-Hunter. Top of the box, rifles a shot on net, but fended off by Jack Kahobga. Later on, Max Chang, he will float in a long cross, looking for Joseph Duncan, who will connect on the header. He puts that one on the back of the net. That goal makes it 1-0 Little Red, taking the early lead. Corning now, looking to get some offense of their own going. Noah Hunkley, deep cross for Roger Louis. Doesn't quite put the touch he wants to on that one, sending it up and over the crossbar. The Hawks, though, getting another free kick opportunity. Isaac Cornfield showing off the range. He's going for goal. Just a little too much power on that one. Corning still looking for the equalizing mark. Joseph Duncan coming down the right side late in the game. This one falls to the feet of Mason Todhunter. He buries that one short side. That will be a 2-0 win for the Ithaca Little Red as they hold Corning off the score sheet completely. Hopping over to some girls volleyball now. We've got Horseheads taking on Binghamton. The Blue Raiders serving to begin the game here. Great dig spike combo giving Horseheads the point. That's Chelsea Smith finishing. Into the second set now. This is Corning versus Horseheads. Great set, bump set, spike for the Horseheads Blue Raiders. They are looking strong against Corning so far. And this is Gabrielle Jankowski on the outside. Corning again, moving the ball around. That is Mackenzie Osgood blocking the shot there. Match point. And that is all we've got as the Horseheads Blue Raiders would beat the Corning Hawks 3-2. Taylor, that's all I've got for high school sports.
Yeah, and I think that's all we have for this segment tonight. We're going to kick it to break right now. Make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms and at ICTV_sportsfile on Instagram. And we got Facebook, Twitter, all of that good stuff. So stick with us because we're going to kick it back to Alex and John right after this break on Sports Final.
Welcome back to Sports Final as we wrap up our final show. To start out this last segment, I want to take you through the top 5 plays of the week. Let's take a look at that to start things off. Number 5, IC Women's Field Hockey taking on Elmira. Maddie Ryan crosses the ball over to Maya Rogers over for the goal. And the Bombers take a 4-0 lead. They win 5-0. Number 4, Ithaca High School versus Corning in a little soccer action. Max Chang crosses the ball over to Joseph Duncan, for the goal. Little Red go up 1-0. They'd end up winning 2-0. Number 3, IC Men's Soccer versus St. Lawrence. The corner kick here. Zach Littman crosses the ball over to Eric Helper, who heads it into the net. And the Bombers would tie the game at 1 with that goal, but they'd fall 3-1. Number 2, IC Men's Football versus Hobart. The freshman, Wahid Nabi, has time to throw in the pocket. Heaves one up to Will Gladney, who you just saw earlier, makes the catch and falls on his back. Number 1, IC Men's Football versus Hobart. 1 second left. Shane Sweeney, the leading passer in the Liberty League, at the 35-yard line of the Bombers with one last Hail Mary wish. Heaves one to the end zone, batted down by Jordan Shem. The Bombers took down Hobart, got the win 24-21. And those are your top 5 plays of the week.
Now looking ahead, you obviously, voice of Ithaca Bomber football. What do we have to look forward to this week with them?
Well, the Bombers, they're playing against Rochester this week, which is going to be not too tough of an opponent as they take them on, who they've had a little bit of a rough start to this season. But then after that, they got to play RPI, who's been solid this year. If they can get wins against both of those teams on the road, I think it's safe to say that they could very much so end up locking this Liberty League.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then also Cornell football, too. They are on a long homestand right now, too. They actually, last team in Division I to play home game this year, so a lot of their remaining games are at home, so be sure to check them out as well, and they'll be back in action.
And that's going to do it for us here on Sports Final for this week. We want to remind you that our show is brought to you by the Bee's Knees British Imports, our sponsor for this semester. And we also want to remind you to follow us on our forms of social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. For John Sokoloff, he's Alex Hassig. We'll say goodnight to you here from Ithaca College.